Okay, so today we're going to do one of those videos that I think pretty much every Halo channel will have done at some point in their lives. I feel left out, so we're going to definitely do that today. Today we're going to be talking about how to play all of the Halo games in order according to lore, like chronologically. Due to the kind of sprawling lore that surrounds the Halo franchise in general, it can be hard to determine where a story starts first. In order to kind of get a grip on this, I've figured that I should probably do a quick rundown on where you should start. If you're a brand new Halo player, I've actually noticed there's a few members of the community who haven't actually played Halo before. They're kind of getting into it because Halo Infinite has come around. We're going to do this rundown. We'll get it nice and concise, and that way you know what games you should be playing, in what order. We're going to cover everything, not just Halo, but Halo Wars, the top-down shooters as well, and everything in between. Relax back, I've got this. We'll take it from here. Okay, so first in the timeline is an easy one, Halo Wars. Now this is a real-time strategy game, so maybe not what you're used to when you think about Halo. Halo Wars is considered the earliest game entry in terms of lore. If you're reading the books, the Forerunner saga definitely comes before this, but game-wise, this takes control. It takes place roughly 20 to 21 years before the events of the original Halo Combat Evolved. In the Halo timeline, that is 2531 CE. What we're focusing on here is a group of UNSC soldiers and scientists who are aboard my favourite ship, the UNSC Spirit of Fire, as they engage the Covenant and stop them from getting their hands on a huge armada of Forerunner ships. Next up we have Halo Reach. Halo Reach happens around 2552. The end mission of Halo Reach takes place a few moments before the original Halo Combat Evolved, so it is the continuation into it. It tells the story of Team of Spartans, Noble Team. If you've not seen the videos on this channel discussing Noble Team, you should go and have a look. I'll link them up in the corner for you. It tells the story of this team of Spartans that are attempting to defend Reach. They are one of multiple teams on Reach, but they are one of the top-end teams. Now, fans of the series knew from the get-go that it was going to be a Pyrrhic victory, if anything. It would be a losing fight. The campaign has a really dark and gritty tone to it, but it introduces some awesome gameplay elements, and the story, I think, is really, really well written. Next, we move to the iconic game, the original title that started it all, Halo Combat Evolved. This happens in the timeline 2552 in the Halo timeline, and is the first game where players control the Master Chief. It had an excellent, or I should say has, an excellent weapon sandbox and other gameplay elements that have remained massively strong fundamental staples of the franchise, and the original Halo focuses on the Chief's journey across Halo, the titular Halo. Now, not only does he learn about the gigantic ring world's actual reason for being, but he also has to defend himself and others against Covenant forces, and we have our first look, our proper first look, it's certainly in a first-person game, against the grotesque Flood. Next up is a game that you probably may, well, I would say probably may not have played, Halo Fireteam Raven. This takes place during the events of Halo Combat Evolved, and it follows a group of ODST soldiers that are battling the Covenant on the Halo ring. Now, Fireteam Raven is unique among the Halo games due to being a cooperative arcade shooter. Now, again, this is still in the 2552 timeline. However, fighting to protect the Pillar of Autumn against waves of grunts and elites is a pretty familiar experience to any Halo fan, but that's effectively what you're doing in Halo Fireteam Raven, but this is an arcade-only game as of this video. Next up we have Halo 2. This is again in the 2552 timeline. A lot happens in this year, but Halo 2 is often considered one of the greatest first-person shooters ever made, and that some people actually think it's better than the original. Personally, I'm not one of them. Anyway, it directly continues the adventures of Master Chief while also adding brand new gameplay elements to push the series forward. Now, from an expanded weapon sandbox to dual wielding, this is the first game that has dual wielding in. Halo 2 was full of surprises for fans, and this includes the famously ambitious multiplayer and a new playable character in the form of the Arbiter, arguably one of the fanbase's favourite characters. Next we have Halo 3 ODST. Now, bear with me on this, it comes before Halo 3 in the timeline because it actually happens during the events of Halo 2. Originally, it was supposed to be a side project by Bungie that supported the story of Halo 3. ODST eventually grew to become a full-fledged game, and it was able to stand tall amongst its other Halo titles. You play as a lone ODST known as the Rookie, roaming the ruins of New Mombasa, and it's actually really, really engrossing. The gameplay gives a more somber tone. It's very kind of... The overtones, certainly musically, are based around jazz, and it's courtesy of Martin O'Donnell, who, if you don't know, Martin O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore are the two who created pretty much what we now know to be the Halo music, effectively, the theme. And the unique plot progression makes ODST a daring little game in the collection of Halo games that we've played. It takes place during the events of Halo 2, just after, if you've played Halo 2 by this point, just after the Covenant ship slip spaces directly over New Mombasa. You are playing one of the ODSTs that was originally dropping as that was happening. Then we come to the iconic Halo 3. Halo 3, again in 2552, Halo 3 concludes the story started by the original Halo before the later events of the Reclaimer saga, which is Halo 4 onwards. Now, due to being the grand finale of a trilogy, the game was designed to be much bigger and better than what came before. Master Chief deals with the entirety of the Covenant, controlled by the Prophet of Truth, and he also eradicates the Flood from the face of the universe, as far as he's aware, all while trying to rescue his AI companion, Cortana. Many gameplay additions were presented to players in this, including a Forge map editor, which allowed you to modify custom multiplayer maps. This is where it all started with that. Next in the list we have Halo Spartan Assault. This happens between the years 2552 and 2557. Spartan Assault is a twin-stick top-down shooter that originally came out for mobile platforms, believe it or not. Now, when it comes to placing Halo games in order, this sits roughly between the events of Halo 3 and 4, and it gives players a chance to control Commander Sarah Palmer, the Spartan 4 commander, as she fights against the Covenant. Although the game had a bit of a bumpy review process, it did garner enough attention to eventually create a sequel. And here we come to Halo 4. Halo 4 is sat in the timeline of 2557, and it is the first game in the Reclaimer saga, as well as the first game that was created by 343 Industries. The story picks up 4 years after the events of Halo 3, and Master Chief and Cortana are pitted against the Forerunner known as the Didact, as well as a splinter faction of the Covenant known as the Storm Covenant. Halo 4 put a lot of extra focus on the relationship between Master Chief and Cortana throughout the campaign, and the multiplayer underwent massive changes as well. Next in the list we have Halo Spartan Strike. This was a game set in the timeline between 2557 and 2558, and is the direct sequel to Spartan Assault. Spartan Strike is again a twin-stick shooter in a top-down view, in the same vein, and is technically taking place between two time periods, partially during Halo 2 and also sometime after Halo 4. The game primarily focuses on the player hunting down an artifact called the Conduit, from when it was first located in the ruins of New Mombasa to when it got transported to a Halo ring. Then we have the mixed reception of Halo 5 Guardians. This is in the Halo timeline at 2558. Now, Guardians is the second to most recent in the list of Halo games in order. It tells the stories of both Master Chief and Spartan Locke, and the latter hunts the former after Chief goes rogue to go and find Cortana. However, despite having generally favourable reviews, the story mode was heavily criticised for lacking a couch co-op, among several other reasons, and many fans felt that the game was a step backwards for the franchise, primarily because of the disambiguation around Master Chief and Fireteam Osiris. The story just didn't connect very well. Then we have Halo Wars 2. Halo Wars 2 is set in 2559 and is the sequel to the original Halo Wars. It takes place after Halo 5 Guardians, and it follows the Spirit of Fire crew as they're dealing with our first look at the Banished on the Abandoned Ark. Now, similar to Halo Wars, it is a real-time strategy game that is set in the Halo universe. Its controls and gameplay mechanics are likewise fairly inviting for newcomers to the genre. It's not the definitive Halo experience, but it is a solid entry in the franchise, and with the plot of the story and the push of the story helps to really set up the plot for Halo Infinite as well. Which brings us perfectly around to the one and only Halo Infinite. It's set for release at the end of this year. If you're watching this, holiday 2021. The timeline of Halo Infinite is set to 2560. So we're looking at a few years after Halo 5 1 year after Halo Wars 2. Now, Halo Infinite is the latest game to be released in the franchise. It has been confirmed that it will take place after Halo 5 and Halo Wars 2. Various trailers have revealed, bits and pieces about the plot, including a new eye known as the Weapon, and this AI's identity has been confirmed as something that was created to thwart Cortana. Now, 343 have promised this to be Master Chief's, greatest adventure yet, and perhaps the most ambitious Halo game to date. They've even said that this game is going to have at least 10 years of support once it's rolled off the production line. We'll see more details on the story as it unfolds, but that brings you right up to date, and now you have a full order of how to play every Halo game that's out there for the moment. If you've enjoyed this video, please click subscribe, click like. Let me know what you think. Have I got this in the right order, or do you think I've got things around? Probably the most contentious issue will be where ODST is to be played in this chronologically. I feel like it should be played after Halo 2 but before 3, but you tell me otherwise. But until next time, as always, happy gaming.